All right, everybody, welcome into Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. This is episode 95 here on September 21st, 2023. I'm Nick live as always from Chattanooga, Tennessee, but from a different location this time. And from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, it's Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
Doing good. Still from the same location, downtown Americana. But first of all, I want to congratulate on your new apartment. I know how it's very important personal landmark, and as your closest friend, one of your closest friends, I want to congratulate you on this quest. It's really nice, and we debut the first episode of the podcast in your new apartment, and we have a lot of live sports tonight. I love when we have our pod when we have live sports happening both in Brazil and US. And I'm going to start with Brazil. 5 minutes in the first half, the second place Palmeiras playing Grêmio on the road, 0-0.
Absolutely. And here in the United States, we have Thursday night football out in Santa Clara, California. We have the San Francisco 49ers 2-0, 3-0 right now with 4 minutes left in the first quarter against the 1-1 New York Giants. We always pick the NFL game, so we figured while we're still early in this game, we should probably go ahead and pick this. Um, I'm going to go Niners in this one, but the Giants are moving the ball fairly well in their first possession after the Niners got a field goal in their first possession.
And they gave Brock Purdy some trouble when the 49ers were in their offensive drive. They were able to sack. So it's somehow an improvement from the debacle on week one. But
absolutely in the first half as well. I mean, they literally were outscored at one point this season, 54-0.
Yeah, so but still pick the 49ers to be 3-0.
Absolutely. Well, the Giants have just tied, so now it's 3-3. So we'll see how this goes. I didn't think Brock Purdy looked that good on the first drive, and it's going to be interesting because it is Thursday, and I know Kirk Herbstreit was talking about how the 49ers are going to try not to overuse Christian McCaffrey tonight, considering the short rest. So that's always one thing these teams have to think about is how you use a player. So anyway, so we'll get to more NFL a little bit later, but first we have to talk about the disaster that was Saturday night in the swamp. We did not drain the swamp, as I have been predicting all offseason. If anything, a tsunami wave from the swamp rose up and flooded all of Tennessee because the Volunteers. The score was not as close as the game. It was closer than the game actually was. The Florida won 29-16. I just have to say, I mean, this is one of the most disappointing performances we've seen in a while. I mean, I know South Carolina happened at the end of last year, but still, like, that was right on the precipice of the playoff berth. That was more heartbreaking than anything. This performance on Saturday just made me really mad. Like, I was very disappointed in what we saw from the Volunteers on Saturday night. Like, to me, that was the single most deflating performance I've seen from a Tennessee team since at least 2020. Because
I guess that 2020 season, it will be the season of disappointment and frustration. But I definitely did not expect, especially the first half performance. I mean, Tennessee looked a little bit like we all expect they will come hard in offense, and that did not happen, especially in the second quarter.
I mean, like, where do you even start with this? And, everyone's going to want to blame Joe Milton, right? Like, everyone's going to want to start with him. And sure, the buck stops with the quarterback most of the time. But I will defend him to an extent here because I don't think this full game is on Joe Milton. Now, did Joe Milton play good? No. He did not play good in this game. I thought in terms of game management, it was terrible. I thought that so like in the second quarter, for example, he got hit in that one play and he should have taken the sack. But you can't just throw the ball when you're getting drilled to the ground because it's going to end up an interception. And that's what happened. And that's really when the game just completely fell apart for Tennessee, is when that interception happened. And, there were, I think, some miscommunications. But I think the most alarming thing about Joe Milton to me in this game was that first drive in that third quarter. We had to use not one, but two timeouts on that opening drive because of miscommunications, because we didn't know what play we were going to run. And then that first drive wraps up on a 4th-and-1 where we just had to run it straight up the gut with Jabari Small. And Jabari Small has been a good running back for Tennessee. But I firmly believe at this point that Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson are more talented, and I think can run the ball more efficiently than Jabari Small. I think Jabari Small should not be getting the lion's shares of carries that he is right now. And I think Small gets the carries more because he's a better pass blocker. And he did great as the best pass blocker in this match. So I understand why we're playing him. But if you're going to commit to the run, you need your best players out there. And Dylan Sampson getting 0 carries in this game is insane. Like, why in the world are we not using this guy? This guy had 4 touchdowns against Virginia a couple of weeks ago, and he can't see the field in this game. Like, your pass offense is not completely clicking, right? I mean, you had an amazing first drive with a deep shot to Squirrel White, and we get a touchdown there. But Raymond Keaton got the touchdown there on the first possession. But after that.
And also here in Brazil, Grêmio scored up 1-0 versus Palmeiras. Grêmio ahead.
Yeah. But then after that, I don't understand. We're supposed to have a really deep roster, and it just doesn't feel like we're utilizing that. Yes, you don't have Hinton Hooker, you don't have Jalen Hyatt, you don't have Cedric Tillman, but you have a lot of guys that can make plays. But you got to have them on the field to make plays, and it doesn't feel like we're putting our playmakers in a good position to make them. But at the same time, that goes back to the quarterback. And you can't be in a situation where you get so lost with the offense that we have to take 2 timeouts because we don't know what we're doing on one drive, especially the first drive. In a game where, we could have come back. I mean, Florida did nothing in the second half on offense. If we got if we convert 2 of those drives that we had a little bit of something going into the end zone, I mean, it would have been a game. And it would have been a game that we could have won. But we just could not get out of our own way. And then what really I think you have to really scratch your head at is the offensive line. And we have to acknowledge just how important Cooper Mays is to this offensive line as a center, because without him, we look completely lost. I mean, I saw a stat, I think it was John Bryce that calculated this. Right now, on average, the Vols are snapping the ball with 19.2 seconds left on the play clock. And, last year, I think that was something like 25, 30 seconds. Just have right, we want to go fast. This offense isn't going fast. We are, the one thing that gives us our advantage as an offense is our speed. It's nothing really tactically. If anything, we don't have that many plays. I mean, literally during the Georgia game last year, it was said by Gary Danielson, we have 11 offensive plays. But because we go so fast, it's hard for defenses to adjust to our offense. But if you're not going fast, then you're allowing these teams to adjust. And it's impossible to really take advantage of what the scheme can be. And, I don't think it's necessarily a coaching thing. It's the fact that the depth behind our starters on the offensive line isn't very good. I mean, that Ollie Lane, holy cow. I mean, all the false starts, all the penalties, the blown, cut assignments, just horrible. I mean, it's like watching Dennis Daly again for the Titans last year, just horrific. I mean, the dude got benched. I mean, you have to be really bad as an offensive lineman to get benched. I mean, it's just a horrific performance. And, when you look at that, it's not all on Joe Milton. But you do have to ask, were there certain things that he isn't doing that Nico Iamaleava can? I don't know. I don't really want to throw Nico behind this offensive line because he's a true freshman, and I only feel like that's will end a disaster. But if we get a couple more losses, I think you may have to start thinking about it.
I- I'll disagree with you. I don't want the same Harrison Bailey kind of experience where all the veteran quarterbacks were failing. Jerry Guarantano, JT Shroud, and then we're like, oh, let's put Harrison Bailey and he's gonna save us. And then we probably wasted a talent because we rushed to it. Like Joe Milton should be the starting quarterback. He he knows the offense. He's been in the program. He's like what, second or third year already. Like he was the starter last year. If you think about it, of course it worked out because Hendon Hooker took over and kind of took everyone by surprise. But another question I'll ask you is that do you think this really high tempo offense, this really praised offense that Josh Heupel developed was more on the backs of Hendon Hooker instead of the coaches, or maybe it was just a fluke.
Well, that's what you worry about, right? Like, we just saw, Mel Tucker, right, just got fired. The one good season he had, you can really attribute it to Kenneth Walker, who now is the starting running back for the Seahawks. Um, Ever since he lost to Michigan State, it has not been the same. You know, I still believe that Josh Heupel is the right guy for this program. I mean, beating Alabama, winning 11 games, winning the Orange Bowl, like you can't discredit that. And you're going to hear some people running around say, "Oh, it's already a fluke." Guys, it is just one loss. Yes, it's a game that meant a lot to all of us. It's a game that I said would be like a defining moment of our season, a chance to break a generational curse, and it didn't happen.
No, and,
But we
and
have to pick ourselves up off the mat here. I mean, we have 9 games left.
And on top of that, Nick, I feel like the feeling the Vol fans had was, boy, we wasted true opportunity to end the streak with our biggest rival on the road. Like I even in 2017 when Florida was also down like the Vols, we came even closer. Like how crazy it is, Nick, that even that 2017 team with Butch Jones came up really short to win on the Swamp. Remember, Florida had to win on a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I mean, if we got to be honest, the Butch, right? He came close in 15 and 17. Heupel's been blown out both times he went to the Swamp. And I think this is another conversation I want to bring up too. Okay, so the last 4 true road games we've had at Georgia, at South Carolina, at Vandy, at Florida. You can take out Vandy in that 56-1 because we had
Yeah,
more
well,
fans.
yeah, like Vandy is not a road game. Like no, 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 no. Like Vandy should be counted as a home game.
Okay, so the last 3 true tough environments 1 and 2. Blown out at Georgia, blown out at South Carolina, and now we got blown out at Florida. That's a trend, Gus. That's a trend. And that's a trend that scares me because if you're ever going to win anything significant, you got to win big games on the road. And we blew out LSU on the road last year. And it's like ever since we won that game, we forgot how to play on the road.
Or maybe it was just a part of how LSU last year couldn't play on the road as well. I remember or also how LSU blow up games. And for LSU that was not the like bad the worst loss they had their season. They lost to Texas A&M, which did not make a bowl game, even though it was Brian Kelly's first year, and they won the West. But I mean, I think definitely this game's going to put a toll on the team. There's a lot of questioning about several players, as you point out, that felt they should be more appreciated, should get more time or even more opportunities on the
I mean, we should put
field.
up the Dylan Sampson post from the other day. I mean, he's basically like talking about how he feels like he's a cheetah in a cage. Um, that's not good. I mean, we literally heard before the game last week. Remember back to the Austin P game, right? We only scored 30 points. We were only up a touchdown at halftime. We were told, oh, the team was just looking ahead to Florida, right? At least that's what I wanted to believe. That we just kind of lackadaisically went through that game, and that the players apparently had a players-only meeting. I mean, is it possible we are actually just not that good? And I'm you so far for the conclusion. Yeah, so far Tennessee is just not a very good football team this year. Um, and we haven't even gotten to the defense yet. I thought this defense would be well, at least for the first 2 weeks, looked very much improved. Um, that progress just got completely rolled back on Saturday, especially in the first half. Florida does not have a good offense. I mean, they don't. They literally didn't have their best receiver, Graham Mertz. I mean, we know what he is, right? He's a mediocre quarterback. But yeah, he completely diced us up. He looked like Peyton Manning. We couldn't get that guy down. We weren't covering people in the secondary. Kamal had may single-handedly be the worst defensive player I've ever seen at the University of Tennessee. Um, I mean, what is this guy doing? Like he's pushed that one touchdown that Travis Etienne had, just pushed him, and then he wants to go and try to fight at the end of the game when you're down 13. I'm sorry. I mean, look, if you're gonna have that mentality, um, I don't want to see it when you're about to lose the game. I don't. I mean, it's one thing, right? I want us to have a fighting mentality when we play a team like Florida. But when you're losing 29-16 with 5 seconds left, I don't want to see you get into a fight because you should have had that fight earlier in the game. Now you just look stupid, frankly, at that point. And
You look like you don't have any sportsmanship, or you're a sore loser.
exactly, like Florida won that game fair and square. Billy Napier, for all the criticisms I have given him over the years, he outcoached Josh Heupel on Saturday. That's just point blank. Graham Mertz outplayed Joe Milton. Their defense showed up and they did what they needed to do. And you got to give credit to the Gators. They did, in my opinion, they didn't play dirty. I thought they played in a respectable manner, and they deserved that victory. And I never like to give Florida credit for anything, but they played well. And that one is huge for them. Like Billy Napier desperately needed that victory, and I'll be curious to see if that jumpstarts him because Florida has a really good class coming in next year. Right now, they're like a top 5 class. I'm scared
Like,
that we just gave him some life.
like no, the I think I have an expression here in Portuguese that we say on those kind of games. Florida plays with blood on their eyes. Do you know? Do you have something like that in America? So
No,
Florida play with blood in their eyes. It's like Florida came with everything. They play with their hearts out. I guess the same expression. Play with their hearts out. In Portuguese, we say we play with blood in their eyes. Like they came for it. Tennessee, I guess they play like same feeling like Austin P. But and like what's the one thing we praise Austin P that gave Vols a hard time? That Austin P put their hearts out, but I guess they have a way less talented team compared to Florida. So probably the Austin P performance kind of was like a red flag for what was about to come. And like
yeah,
also like
it's an effort.
and like in praise to Trevor Etienne, what a game he had! Like 172 yards. Like he himself had almost twice as many yards than Tennessee had.
Did I call it Trevor? I call it's Trevor Etienne. Oh no, he's. I think I accidentally called him his brother by his
Yeah,
brother's name. I'm so sorry, man. Because obviously that dude's going to be good. And in my opinion, Trevor Etienne, because to me, I think he's the best player on Florida's roster. I think he's going to be in the NFL one day. I don't know if he's as good as his older brother, but he'll be in the league too. Because Travis Etienne Jr. is when healthy, is a top 5-10 back in the league right now. So I'll be curious to see what Trevor can do.
look what the trouble he gave to Tennessee's defense.
Yeah, and we thought that our run defense was going to be stellar. Like we knew our pass defense was the make or break, right? But I didn't expect our run defense to suck. And if our run defense sucks, then we really are screwed. Because if we can't stop the run, what are we doing? In Florida 2 weeks ago at Utah ran for 13 yards, and we gave up. What was it, like 200? Nearly 200 yards. So, it's just a disgusting performance, and I think it goes back to what you said, Gus. Do we think this team maybe is resting on the laurels of last year's team? Do they think like, oh yeah, you won 11 games, you won the Orange Bowl, you finished number 6, and Do they think they were just going to come back out and happen again?
That's what I was
Like,
worried about. That's why I was worried about the Orange Bowl victory. It is good to win a major bowl game, definitely. Tennessee fans had not experienced that in a long time, but that win kind of masqueraded, hided all of the team's problem. And we have to remember Tennessee played a Clemson team, and Clemson is also struggling this season. It's not that Clemson is, oh my god, they're back. No, they're definitely not back. But I feel like now we're seeing the harsh reality of this team without Hendon Hooker. And now, Hypo, if you really want to show a, he wants to be a top level coach, he needs to find a way for this team to be as good as they were up until that Georgia loss without Hendon Hooker. And that's probably really hard challenge.
yeah, but with this offense being nowhere near where it was, right? And we're waiting to see when Cooper Mays comes back. Josh Heupel says that Cooper Mays is, quote, a game time decision, which means you're probably not going to see him again because he's been a game time decision literally every week this year. It's kind of like what Kirby Smart does with some of his injuries, like Lat McConkey this year. When's he coming back? We don't know, right? We'll never know when he comes back. We definitely need him back by next week, though, when we play South Carolina. In fact, we really need him this week. We need this offense to get back up to speed. And UTSA, the team we're playing this week, I know people are probably going to look at the schedule and be like, oh, it's just UTSA. It's just a lower tier team. UTSA, now I know they're 1-2, but they were a 10-1 team last year. A lot of people had them on their verge top 25 heading into this season. I think the big question about them is their quarterback playing this week, Frank Harris, who was a star. Right now, he is day to day. He's a game time decision. And that really will determine how this game goes. If he cannot go, then I think Tennessee should win this game with not necessarily relative ease, but I think they will win, comfortably. If Harris can play, we better show up because Tennessee has a far more talented roster than UTSA overall. But UTSA is going to throw their entire weight at this game. They're coming into an SC stadium for the only time this season, and we better not come out like we did against Austin Peay or last week. Or it's not impossible that UTSA can pull off the upset. You think about it to last year. I had the ultimate confidence in the Vols every single week last year that we would win. I don't think I picked against the Vols once last year. I'm not picking against them this week to lose. But I'm not confident in this team right now. No. I'm not confident because I just don't think we have it up here. I know they have the talent to be a top 10, top 15 team. They just don't. I don't know if they're focused enough right now and if they're committed to one another. I feel like when you have a guy like Hendon Hooker last year, that guy is a central leader. That guy can be a heartbeat for a team. And that team moved as Hendon moved. And I just don't feel like the team this year has that. I don't think necessarily it's a lack of effort necessarily, but something's got to change, and hopefully Coach Heupel and his staff can figure it out. Because if you don't figure it out, how many losses are there on the schedule? You look at it. Carolina looked pretty good last week. They can beat us. A&M, I know they lost at Miami, but their offense looks really good so far. They can beat us. We'll talk about Bama in a minute. I do think that we may have a guest joining us here soon, a familiar guest, and I'll be curious to get.
Nice.
Be curious to get him on this discussion. Kentucky.
Please, we love guests.
Absolutely. And Kentucky, honestly, they really haven't played anyone big, and they really haven't looked good in any of their games, but we got to go there. Missouri just upset. I skipped UConn. UConn is like 0-3. I think we should handle them. But Missouri on the road, they're undefeated. They just beat K-State. Obviously, Georgia's Georgia, and the team I'm seeing so far is not competing with Georgia. Then you got Bama, who just lost UNLV. I think there are some losses there if this team doesn't get it together. And
I mean, the only upside, I know it's mean to say, well, the only upside if the Vols doesn't do a good season is that I get to see them in Relia Quest Bowl in Tampa because I'll be spending my end of the year in Tampa. So at least because I never seen the Vols in a bowl game.
yeah, of course, you need to be like what 8-4 to get to that,
Yeah.
which right now is looking like where we're more likely to end up than because I think I predicted us to go 9-3. I just didn't have one of those losses being Florida. So I don't know. This whole thing is just it's definitely demoralizing. I mean, it's not the worst loss ever. It's not Georgia State, um, but it sucks, and especially since we're not going to Gainesville for 3 more years now. At the minimum, it may be more time before we go back to Gainesville, Florida. Um, in one way, in one head now that Tennessee, Florida isn't going to be a yearly rivalry anymore. Um, I'm almost thinking maybe just from a mental standpoint, maybe I should just let the Florida rivalry die. Um, because it just hasn't been a good experience. I mean, literally in 17 years, I've seen us beat them twice. I mean, it's not a rivalry. They own us. It's like Kentucky, like when they think Tennessee's a rival. Um, I've literally seen you beat us twice. That's not a rivalry. And Florida, frankly, they shouldn't see us as a rival. Um, we just, for whatever reason, and even when we beat them, it takes extraordinary circumstances. Like we have to come back from a 21-3 deficit in 16. We have to survive the onside kick recovery last year. I mean, we just can't do anything right against them.
I mean, it's not that I mean, rivalries is what makes sports relevant. I feel like, but it's fair. Florida owned Tennessee in the 21st century. That's a true fact.
I mean, think about this. I have seen us beat Florida and Alabama the same amount of times, twice. And Alabama's been way better during that time period.
Yeah. Like for me, the most unexcusable loss was 2017. So I think Florida was dealing with the same amount of issues. The Vols were there, and they just couldn't hold it together. Like
Yeah, I
that
mean, it was
2017 loss really, really still makes me. But I'll never forget that feeling when Tennessee finally beat Florida in 2016. Like I was in Neyland Stadium the pregame, in the fall walk, and the fans were like, like but at the same time, Billy Napier, I think that game's gonna give him a lifeline. I don't know how big of a lifeline, but I think maybe they'll resurrect because if you think about it, Florida, uh, last year beat Utah that was on the top 10 versus last year, so it's not easy to win in Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically impossible for Tennessee. It feels like to ever win down there. It feels like everyone else has won down there except for good old Tennessee. And we have a touchdown for the Niners, but there is a flag, so we'll see who that flag is on. Um,
I guess,
Brock,
I guess, I guess now you're ahead of me. I am on a streaming in the Brazilian ESPN Plus, so I guess I am now behind you.
yeah, well, Amazon, it's on Amazon Prime here in the United States, so everyone has to stream this game. Yeah, I think it stands. I'm pretty sure. That was offsides. Yeah, touchdown, 49ers.
Yes, in Brazil, 32 minutes. Palmeiras playing way better, had better opportunities, but still 1-0 Grêmio down in Grêmio's arena.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
but
I
moving
guess.
forward,
Yeah, let's move on to some other college football there. I guess real quick, what do you think happens this week against UTSA?
I think Tennessee comes back and win, but definitely will have to play more appealing because the fans are going to be as patient as they were 2 weeks ago against Austin P.
Yeah, it's gonna be something like 30-20. I think it'll be a tight game. I think the line's like 17. Wouldn't be shocked if UTSA covers that and has a
I don't
chance in the second half.
I don't think the Vols will cover that. I think it's gonna be 28-20,
Yeah.
28-18.
Yeah, they're going to have to prove to me they can't actually score a lot of points before I pick them to actually score more than 30 points again. So, yeah, hopefully by this time next week I'll have confidence again in the Vols, but I don't tonight. I do not tonight. Um, anyway, we may circle back to this topic here in just a little bit, but I do want to move on a little bit to some other college. Actually, Jason, you are here.
What's up, fellas? How are you guys?
Good,
Oh,
good.
great. Better to have you with us, our honorary guest. Even Allison, who always watches, were asking about. He say, "Hey, when Jason's coming back to the pod?" He's like, "He's our honorary guest. He can show up whenever he wants."
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you having me as always. It's always a pleasure. And I'm excited to be back. It's always a fun time.
Yeah, and we're kind of beginning to wrap up on the Florida game, but I just kind of going to get your perspective on it because you were someone who were issuing warnings all offseason about Joe Milton and his Tennessee team, and maybe to warn the rest of us to maybe not be so confident. And unfortunately, it took me watching that game Saturday to realize, okay, this is not going to be 2022 all over again.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to expect it to be 2022 all over again. 2022 was a very special year, and Hendon Hooker was a very special player. Not only that, Cedric Tillman was a very special player. Jalen Hyatt was a very special player. You know, you've got all of these guys who are no longer with the team who were big time parts of what we were able to do. And I also think it's a really big deal to talk about Alex Golish. He is being missed a lot more than people were expecting because everybody thinks Josh Heupel just runs the offense. And while he creates the playbook, Alex Golish was a good play caller. Alex Golish was a guy who kept the offense, I don't want to say from getting stagnant, but he kept it fresh. And the fact that Alex Golish's team was able to play Alabama so close when now that he is at South Florida, that goes to show that he is a better coach than people gave him credit for. And Josh Heupel is a great coach. Don't get me wrong. But Alex Golish is no slouch either. And so when you take away all of these pieces, you have a guy in Joe Milton who is a fantastic talent, but he is a very unrefined player. And when I talked about having, some doubts about what we were able to do this season, a lot of them started with Joe Milton because, okay, is he able to find the consistency? He doesn't even have to play up to the level that he played at in the Orange Bowl. If he can find like 3/4 of that and play consistently, Tennessee's going to be a really good football team. And he had a good first week. He had a very bad second week. And then against Florida, I think he actually played a pretty decent game. The wide receivers have to step up. They've played poorly in all 3 games. And then the run game, I don't know how I feel about it because you've got 3 good backs, but you don't have a good offensive line to run behind. And the defense has been subpar outside of Aaron Beasley. Aaron Beasley has done very well. Omari Thomas has done pretty well. Outside of those guys, what else do you have on defense? And I think that's a big question mark. Now, I wasn't trying to just be the negative Nancy when we were coming in and talking about, okay, what's this football season going to look like? Because I want the Vols to go and win. I'm an alumni. I'm looking at my degree on the wall right now. Like, I want the Vols to go and win the championship, but it's just not realistic. That's not where this program is at right now, and that's okay. Now, with that said, I think Joe Milton needs to be treading very lightly. I think he played fairly well, but you got to remember, he's a senior. If this team starts to struggle with him, there is no reason that Nico Yamaliava does not play at the end of the season if Joe Milton is struggling at all. And is that a cutthroat decision? Of course, but it's a possibility. And so I've told you guys all along that I think Joe Milton has the potential to be this year's Anthony Richardson, meaning somebody that doesn't start a whole lot of games in his career, but has that kind of ascent when the time comes. And he's not been able to find his groove. And while that's kind of frustrating, at the same time, it's not something that's entirely unexpected, because it's been the challenge for him his entire collegiate career, is to find that consistency and be able to put a couple of weeks in a row together. And the clock's ticking because he's out of time. We're at 11:58. Like, come midnight, this is Nico Yamaliava's team. And it is what it is.
But one point I brought up when I was, when it was just me and Nick, and I like that you brought up this to ask you. I fear that if we rush with Nico, we can end up with the same issue we had with Harrison Bailey, where remember in 2020 where we covered Jason, Jared Guarantano and JT Shroud were not good, and then we were like, let's put Harrison Bailey, and then we put it, and then we, that kid lost his confidence, and he also left the team. Like, I don't know how good. Like, I'm not saying he probably would have been great, but I felt like he should have been preserved in that 2020 season. Don't you think Nico should be preserved as well?
No, I think that's an indictment of Harrison Bailey more than it is of anybody. Harrison Bailey is at Louisville now. I still get to have him as my quarterback, except he's not, because he's on the bench. He's not even starting at Louisville, which is saying something considering Jack Plummer is not that good. Harrison Bailey's descent is out of his own incapability of playing the quarterback position. He looked okay at Tennessee, but his actions led to his downfall. Going to UNLV and jumping ship and going to Louisville after he graduated from UNLV. Jumping around like that is the problem. Not focusing is the problem. Not being able to live up to expectations that other people put on him, maybe that's on the other people. He had the tools to be good, but he was never able to put it together. Nico Yamaliava is in a similar spot. But if he doesn't perform, I'm not going to chalk that up to, oh, well, we ruined him because he wasn't ready. I refuse to do that. Because those that are ready and those that are good enough, those that are good enough will always be ready. And those that aren't good enough will get themselves ready if they have the right mindset. And you got to have that killer instinct, that Mamba mentality to be able to make it at this level. And I just don't think Harrison Bailey had it, and it shows.
I mean, like Tua, for example, I think it's a true freshman, redshirt freshman when he got thrown in the second half national title game, and I mean, he got it done.
And he rose to the occasion because he believed in himself. He had the confidence. He was prepared. That is what it is. Harrison Bailey played for a guy that didn't know how to prepare anything except for some McBenjamins in a bag. When do you choose to indict Jeremy Pruitt or whoever the coach was at UNLV? When do you choose to indict those guys versus when do you choose to indict Harrison Bailey for not making anything of his opportunities?
And Josh Heupel has proven that he deserves I forget where I'm trying to get here, but he deserves our trust when it comes to quarterbacks. I mean,
we got Drew Lock to the NFL.
Exactly.
Drew Lock.
Exactly.
No, I agree with you, Jason. I'm not saying Harrison Bailey was this generational talent that, Jerry Pruitt destroyed his career. I'm just concerning that if you put all the pressure on Nico, he might lose his confidence. I'm saying, I wouldn't rush to take Joe Milton out of the team.
Well, what I will say too is, Nico, he knew what he was getting himself into when he chose to come to Tennessee, a program that hasn't won a national title or an SEC title in 25 years, and take an $8 million NIL deal. That gives you as much pressure as any single recruit will ever get. I mean, name 5 recruits from last year's class that have more pressure than Nico Yamaliava. You can't, because the expectations that the Vol fan base has for him are just unbelievable.
Did you guys Did you guys saw there was like a sign on I-40 already saying to put nickel?
Okay, now that's stupid. That look, the fans. Okay, okay, and I think this is another discussion because there's a lot
Tennessee
of boo
fans are
birds
going to be
against.
Tennessee fans.
Right, and it is what it is, right? We are the Philadelphia fans of college football. I mean, we just are. Like, we are intense, we are passionate, we are loyal, but we can also turn on you in a heartbeat. I mean, it's just who we are as fans, and that's what also I'm very interested to see this weekend. The energy in the because I'll be honest, I don't think the energy against Austin Peay was good. I think there was a lot of anxious energy, a lot of negative energy, a lot of why don't we look amazing energy? And now after the debacle Saturday, there's going to be a lot of, I think, kind of a pissed off, angry energy in the crowd. And if the Vols would immediately come out and start scoring at will on UTSA, which they're not, UTSA is not a terrible football team. We'll be curious to see if the crowd just instantly turns on the team.
Don't be afraid for Neyland Stadium to be booing a lot. We saw it against Austin Peay, and we'll see it again if this team doesn't come out and perform. Now, the thing is, I tried to cap the expectations with you guys, and I think a lot of people were just expecting way too much out of this team without all of those pieces that you have to go and replace. And I think the vast majority of Tennessee fans are somewhere in the middle of me and the booing, because I've been one of the most pessimistic people regarding Tennessee. And I think, like I said, pretty much everybody is somewhere in the middle. And I'm hoping that people don't start booing, because that's not what you need. However, I get it. And if you don't perform, you need to be on the bench. Tennessee is a good enough team in the best conference in the history of college football, with enough talent there to be able to be 2-3 deep at every position. If you don't perform, the next guy is ready to take your spot. There should be no positions on this roster that are not in that vein. And quarterback is the first one that people think about. Now, I do think Cooper Mays coming back is going to make a big deal. I thought he was coming back this past week, and apparently he was not cleared in time or whatever. I don't know. But I thought he was coming back this week. And I forget who it was on Twitter, but somebody asked, do you think Tennessee will win, and who is going to be your player of the game? I said yes, but that the player of the game was going to be Cooper Mays. And he may not get the credit for it, but he is a damn good football player, and he enables the Vols. He's a very good run blocker, and he enables the Vols to ground and pound, which, if you guys remember, is actually the basis of this Heupel offense. Because once you start stacking the box against this team, which you have to do when you can ground and pound, then you can just throw it over the top. And when you don't have that run game, which it's there, it's just I don't know that the play calling is there right now. I don't know that the situational play calling has enabled the team to be in the best position. I also don't think that Joe Milton's inaccuracies and his inconsistencies have enabled this to be a well-oiled machine. But at the end of the day, you got to run the football if you want to throw the ball over the top.
I mean, I'll say this. I think overall, the play calling wasn't the number one issue on Saturday. I mean, the fourth down play call in the third quarter, that one was bad. It
You
reminded
got
me
to
of
tank at
17.
quarterback. You got to run a sneak and
Yeah.
push him over the line. I'm sorry. You just have to. He's 6'5" and like 250 pounds. Just run the ball under center on a sneak. Sorry. That was infuriating. Continue.
I mean, literally the Eagles. I mean, they show you why they do this every single 4th and inches or first and goal at the 1 yard line, because it's unstoppable. I mean, Joe Milton is as big as like a Jalen Hurts. You can push that dude through.
He's bigger than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, exactly. And it works every single time.
If you if you are that size and you are an SEC team with an SEC caliber offensive line, and you can't get 1 yard, just pack it up and go home. Honestly.
Yeah.
Go home. Because you don't even deserve to be on the field anymore if you can't get 1 yard.
Right. I mean, and that was just the cap of just that awful drive. And we're talking about this before you came on about Milton burning those 2 timeouts in the first drive, which were huge.
Negative football IQ. How?
Like, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that before. I mean, obviously, I know Austin Peay's coach learned all of his timeouts in the third quarter, but that was deliberate. That was a deliberate attempt to destroy the tempo of the offense, and it worked to his credit. But this was just stupid on our part. I mean, Florida did nothing on offense that entire second half. Like, we could have easily gotten back into that game, but we were not going to allow ourselves to be in that game. We at that point had decided to not be in that game. So
it's things like that make me doubt Joe Milton, because those are the reasons that he's been inconsistent, between that and his inconsistency throwing the ball over the top and being accurate. Those two things have been the fuel to the fire for Joe Milton.
Yeah, but I think I'm somewhere in the middle of the Nico debate. And also, shout out Tessa. Tessa. Thank you for supporting the Two Americas All Sports podcast. And also shout out to Jeanette as well. But I'll say that, I land somewhere in the middle of the Nico debate, right? Because if he gets thrown in, I expect him to perform reasonably well. Now, he's going to make rookie mistakes if you throw him in. But behind this O-line, it's not going to be amazing, right? And you're going to have to get the timing down with the receivers and everything else. I'll say this. I think Joe Milton's do or die game now is the stretch leading from now until the Alabama game, because that's the next road test is in Tuscaloosa. We have 3 home games. We got UTSA, Carolina, and Texas A&M. With the way Bama's played so far, that's not a game that we should go in there with the mentality of we have no chance. Like, that's a game where you should have the mentality of we can go in there and win in Tuscaloosa.
I think you should have that mentality for every game. This team is good enough to beat anybody on the schedule.
Yeah, and I just wonder if they went in Gainesville with the mentality of we can't win here, and because I think after a certain point, especially in the second quarter, I think the team that it got in their heads that they couldn't win in Gainesville, and it's just and you coach football, Jason, how much psychology is important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we went through walkthrough this afternoon, and we were talking about, all right, who all's done losing? Raise your hand. Everybody raised their hand. All right, then why are we beating ourselves? We're the only team that can beat us. Now go and do it. Go play good football, and we're going to steamroll everybody else. It's, sometimes it's really that simple. Look at Colorado. Deion Sanders instills confidence in his players, and they play with confidence. Crazy how that works. And when you play with confidence, you play to the best of your ability. When you don't play with confidence, you go out there scared, and you go out there and, play subpar football. And it shows.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado, and we'll get to them here in just a minute, but I mean, what they've done, I mean, I said all offseason they would be looking to win 3 games, and they're already at 3 wins. Deion Sanders has done way better than I thought he would at that stock. So, yeah.
I had some doubts about him as well, but he put a lot of them to bed playing against Colorado State, because he is cutthroat as a coach. I didn't know if he had it in him, because he knows football. Of course he knows football. He can recruit. He's proven that. But was he able to make those cutthroat decisions? The answer is absolutely. Colorado is going to be a problem.
Absolutely. And let's go into the Buffaloes. Why not? Because who thought that we would be sitting here talking about Colorado State as one of the legitimate games of the week? I was up to 2 a.m. watching this thing on Saturday night, and 9 million others were as well. This game had 9.3 million viewers. The Twitter timeline at 2 a.m. was absolutely off the chain. Everyone is enamored with prime time in Boulder, and it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in college football. And you have to give, when it comes to Colorado State, there's two minds, right? Because one, they didn't come in there scared. They went in there and played their tails off. But I think their team's kind of dirty, especially with the hit on Travis Hunter. That player for Colorado State should be suspended.
I mean, it's football. It's football. I don't think. I think he was there to put fear in Travis Hunter trying to win the psychological battle, and he ended up getting hurt. I don't fault him for what he did, and I don't think Colorado does either. It's unfortunate, but that's football. That is high-energy football, and that's the psychology of football. Because if you can go out and set the tone early, and you can go out and instill fear in your opponent, they're going to play scared. It's what we were just talking about. You go out and play with no confidence or scared that you're going to get hit, you're going to play subpar. I think it's just unfortunate that he got hurt.
And that's fair, right? And Colorado State, right? If you think about it, they come into that game. If you're the Colorado State Rams, everyone's talking about the Buffaloes. College game day is there, big news there. It's all about Colorado, Colorado, Colorado. And everyone's just like, oh, Colorado State, they lost to Washington State 50-24 in week one. Nobody cares about the team in Fort Collins. And they made them care. That one wide receiver they have, I forget his name, but he had like 15 catches in this game. I mean, that guy, I think he mentioned one, Torrey Horton, 16 catches, 133 yards. One touchdown, had a ridiculous catch on a third down. Colorado, that dude is good. That dude is really good.
A.J. Scott?
I know, Torrey Horton.
Torrey Horton.
Yeah, Torrey Horton. That guy was good. But you have to got to give credit, though, to Shedeur Sanders. That last drive he had, that was just a beautiful execution of the 2-minute drive. And even though, this, as you said, this wasn't a game that really was going Colorado's way. You lose your best player, the Shohei Ohtani of college football, and Travis Hunter. And Shedeur Sanders has to, and I believe Christian McCaffrey just scored another touchdown. That, in other news, water is wet. As the 49ers go up 16-3 against the Giants.
Yeah,
but
and here in Brazil, halftime in Porto Alegre, Grêmio 1-0 versus Palmeiras. Palmeiras had some opportunities, but it's not playing as well as people thought they would.
Yeah, Palmeiras, they got to get that win, or at least a point out of that. That's not a good start for them. But back on Colorado, but Shedeur Sanders, though, he found a way. He willed his team to a win, and I didn't expect him to start for Reno. Now, I wouldn't have expected this to be the toughest out of their 3 games, but it was. I mean, think about it. They've had 2 come from behind wins now in the fourth quarter. They came from behind in TCU. They had to score late in that one, and now they came from behind against Colorado State. So this is a team, as you were alluding to, that has full confidence. They don't give up, and they're going to need that heading into these next couple of weeks because it gets real tough starting this week at Oregon, where they're a 3-touchdown underdog. And it's funny because they were a 3-touchdown underdog to begin the season at TCU. Now they are again at Oregon. The brain in me is saying, when you look at Colorado statistically, outside of their passing attack, which is second in the country, most of their statistics are very, very low. Most of their defensive stats are in the hundreds. Their rushing stats aren't very good. They're running like, I think, 61 yards a game or something like that. It's just not they're not doing a lot of things well outside of their passing attack. But at this point, I'm hesitating saying that Colorado's going to get blown out here because their passing game may be that good to keep them in this.
I think that Shedeur Sanders has shown that he is a capable quarterback in FBS. Everybody was disrespecting these guys because they were playing at Jackson State. And to be fair, nobody's really made that jump before. But I think he has proven himself to be more than capable. Travis Hunter is a very good player. We knew that. He was the number 1 recruit in the country, playing both ways. And I think as long as he's got the football in his hands, good things are going to happen. It's not like their receivers are scrubs. They went out and got that guy from Central Florida or wherever he came from, also playing for Colorado. They've got some dudes. Horn. They have Horn from wherever he's from in Florida, and they've got some guys. It's just they're going to take a few years to be able to get that roster up to par with the Utahs, the Washingtons, even Oregon this year. It's going to take a little bit of time. USC, I'm not sold on them. I think the two best teams in the conference are Washington and Utah, but I mean, there's no reason Colorado can't be that third best team in the conference and even compete to be one of the top two if Shedeur Sanders keeps playing the way he does.
I'm about to make what is an insane take. I think so far through 3 weeks, the most consistently impressive team is Washington. I think when you look at what they did to Boise State, 56-19 over them, and they go into East Lansing last week, and I know Michigan State was dealing with the Mel Tucker deal and whatnot, but to still go all the way across the country into Big Ten country and run a team out of their own stadium, I mean, this Washington team right now, I mean, I think they could beat anybody. And I'm not saying they're going to win the national title or anything, but they're a contender. They are 100%. And because I think the Pac-12 right now is just the best conference. I mean, I know SEC.
I won't go that far, but
I mean, I think right now this year, the Pac-12 is deeper. Now, obviously, it's not going to matter because the Pac-12 won't exist next year.
I think the Pac-12 top to bottom may be the best conference, but I don't think that.
I mean, I think they're just peaking right now because you have a lot of really good quarterbacks right now. You got Penix, you've got Nix, you've got Sanders, you got Williams. Of course, you got Utah. Whenever to get Cam Rising back.
Yeah, I think that I think they may be the top conference as far as top to bottom good, but I have a really hard time believing that a team like Washington can compete with the Georgias. I have a really hard time thinking that any team from the Pac-12 can end up on that level. They're all pretty good.
I mean, I wouldn't expect Colorado to compete with Georgia, but I think Washington could. I don't think Washington.
Maybe I think Washington gets run out of the stadium against a team
right
like
now.
this.
I don't. I mean, I would pick Georgia to win, but I think it'd be a close game.
Yeah, we also thought Tennessee versus Georgia would be a close game last year. Think about it.
Well, that's fair enough, right?
Georgia's just on another level. This is no disrespect to Washington. I think they're a great football team. But when you compare them to the big boys, the big dogs, no pun intended, I think you start to realize that the Pac-12, even if they are a pretty good conference and it's a really competitive conference, they're not going to be on the level of the top SEC teams. And they're not going to be on the levels of Ohio State if they hit their stride. They're not going to be on the levels of, Florida State if they keep up what they're doing, although they had kind of a scare in the Wells Crowther game at Boston College this year.
Or how about what Aaron Young saying? I agree with him. Texas ran Alabama out of the stadium and put up a great performance against Wyoming. I mean, not a lot of people putting out credit to this Steve Sarkisian team. I think Texas is going to be on the college football playoff.
Oklahoma, though. Oklahoma so far is not playing too bad. They threw up 66 at Tulsa this past week. They threw up 73 in week 1 against Butch Jones at Arkansas State. Because I know those are not two very good teams, but to throw up those numbers, you had to be good against an FBS team. And I think Oklahoma, we really haven't seen against green competition yet. They go to Cincy this week, so that's at least a step up in competition.
They'll run Cincinnati out of the stadium, too.
Yeah. They literally just lost to Miami of Ohio for the first time in like 16 years.
You are watching Scott Satterfield go to work. There's a reason that Louisville fans wanted him gone. Louisville fans said a lot of outlandish things about Scott Satterfield when he left, and all the Cincinnati fans were thinking, oh, they're just salty he's leaving like the UCF fans were when Heupel left to come to Tennessee. And then they realized, oh, they're actually right. Like, this is real. The Scott Satterfield effect is not great. Cincinnati, thank you. Get that guy out of my school.
Yeah, any year the Battle of the Victory Bell in Southwest Ohio is in Oxford and not Cincy, something went horribly wrong.
Exactly.
So I didn't see that game. I don't know how the heck that happened, but hey, shout out to the Red Hawks for getting that. Bell. And also shout out to WVU, West Virginia, for taking out the Pittsburgh Panthers. I mean, disappointing start for them. Losing to Cincy and West Virginia.
I just have
Fast.
2 words to say regarding West Virginia. Sweet Caroline. You know the rest.
No. Yeah. So, hey, and Neil Brown, that's a big one for him. I mean, I don't know if that will avoid him getting fired at the end of the year, but that went a long way because if he had lost the game, that would have sealed his fate. But beating Pitt, that gives him some life. So we'll see what happens.
If there ever was a game that would save his job, it's that. Because the backyard brawl is the biggest rivalry game in college football. I don't care what anybody says. I don't want to hear the Iron Bowl. I don't want to hear Ohio State, Michigan. Get that shit out of here. It is the backyard brawl. Watch the game once and tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, those two fan bases just hate each other. I mean, Pittsburgh fans will never shut up about 2007 and how they ruined West Virginia's national title season. But that's so sad, though, because West Virginia would have won.
Pat McAfee missed the field goal,
Yeah, they would have never.
Of all people, Pat McAfee.
Look, Pat McAfee got death threats over that. And he's one of the most well-liked players ever.
Yeah.
That shows you how hostile that rivalry is.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not just losing that rivalry, it's losing a chance at the time. We almost had a West Virginia-Missouri national title game that year. 2007 just was a wild. I mean, Chase Daniel versus Pat White. I mean, God, 2007 was peak college football.
Pat White, Tavon Austin, and the gang in Morgantown, that's one of the most electric offenses I've ever seen.
South Florida controlled their own destiny to the college football national championship. South Florida in that year.
Yeah. I think we need to talk about South Florida, too. I don't know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Jason, but shout out to Alex Golesh and the Fighting Bulls. Being tied with Alabama in the second half, who in the world saw that coming? So shout out to them, but what in the world is going on in Tuscaloosa?
First of all, I still don't get it. Like, Alabama got paid to play in Tampa. Like, everybody was like, you don't expect SEC team playing with a low-tier conference on the road. I guess now Nick Saban, say, oh, we're playing on the road in a hard environment, blah, 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 blah.
Well, that stadium was, mostly Bama fans, first of all. I mean, plus it's an NFL stadium, right? It's a Bucs stadium. So, I mean, that's the reason why you go to South Florida. It's not like going to, Kent State, So it's a different thing. So what's interesting here is the rumors and obviously I think it all goes back to the quarterback situation, right, for Alabama right now. So Jalen Milroe is going to start this week against Ole Miss. They tried out Tyler Buckner and Ty Simpson last week, and it didn't work.
Pal Ty Simpson.
It didn't work. I don't want to call the dynasty over, right? Because you have to really see them fall off a cliff. And Bama still has so much talent, right? They have as much talent as any roster in the country. But, man, I just don't think their coaching's there right now. I think both of their coordinators are just not – you don't have Kirby Smart in the roster anymore. You don't have a Steve Sarkisian. You don't have, Lane Kiffin as an offensive coordinator anymore. But that's why, Bama back then was elite, right? Because Nick Saban hired these elite assistants, and he let the elite assistants do their thing. And Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele are not elite assistants. And because of that, no matter how elite your talent is, you're just not going to get the most out of it. And you got to remember back to last year, Bryce Young was bailing Bama out of some really bad situations. Without Bryce Young,
he was the only reason that they were in the game against Tennessee.
Yeah, they would have been blown out in Knoxville without Bryce Young. Like, if Jalen Milroe had to go to Neyland Stadium, I mean, we would have won by 30 or 40 points. Let's just be real.
It ended up 52-12.
Yeah. So now they don't have Bryce Young, and now he is, learning the rough way in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers. I feel bad for him. He just has very little help, but man, I hesitate to write off Alabama because, and Tess says, Nick, you're hurting me. That's my team. Yeah, I know. But
Yeah, Tessa, we talk about all the teams here.
yeah, we talk about every team. But yeah, we just had to speak for an hour about us losing to Florida. So at least Bama won last week, right? But uh, I don't know what they're going to do because Jalen Milrow, I think, is still the best out of these three options. I mean, even though he's not a great thrower, I mean, he still is mobile. But in the first two games, they didn't really have him run the ball well. I mean, they only, I think, had him run for, I think, 40 something yards against MTSU, and they only ran him, I think, like 30 or 40 yards against Texas. And that's not playing to his strengths. I think you have to get him mobile, you have to get him on the run, and I think that will open up a lot of things because your running backs aren't that elite right now. I mean, we all talk about them losing Bryce Young. They also lost Jameer Gibbs. I don't think they have anyone in roster right now that's as good as Jameer Gibbs. And then their receivers right now are Jalen Waddle. They don't have an AJ Green or anyone like that right now. Or yeah, but
they look. Alabama doesn't need a Jameer Gibbs to be good running the football. Jam Miller. He's a sophomore running back for them. He is good enough to be the bell cow. I mean, look, Josh Jacobs was a bell cow just for efficiency. Like, he runs hard and he runs efficient. And he's doing the same thing in the NFL. There's no reason Jam Miller can't do that. You don't need the top-end talent to be able to win. You have to just scheme for it. And that's something that I trust Nick Saban to do. But now, to Aaron's point, he says it's crazy what happens when you aren't the only team paying players, which is true. But I think the number one thing here that people are forgetting is Nick Saban doesn't like the transfer portal. Nick Saban has been pretty hesitant. He's Dabo Swinney, but at least he's embraced NIL. He doesn't have these top-end guys that already have experience coming from these lower conferences. The only guy that he had like that was a wide receiver he got from Louisville, who wasn't even that great at Louisville. And you're not seeing big-time transfers go to Alabama. You're seeing them go to Colorado. You're seeing them go to, these other teams, Tennessee. And you're seeing these teams that take those transfers. Florida State is a great example this year. Florida State's entire team damn near is from the transfer portal. And look what they're doing.
Aaron Young says that
coaching staff put the comment on there. Dabo Swinney has embraced God's name, image, and likeness. And I would even go as far as to say this, Aaron. Dabo Swinney has embraced and disgraced God's name, image, and likeness.
Well, I'm not going to speak to that. I know you are the number one Clemson hater here. Of course, my team does not have enough exposure to Clemson. We just blow them out in the Orange Bowl. That's all we do.
I want to add to that is that Dabo Swinney was supposed to be the successor for Nick Saban. I don't think he's going to last much longer in Clemson. I don't think he's going to survive much longer. Like, do you know what Dabo Swinney reminds me of? Indiana's basketball coach,
Bob
Knight, who wouldn't embrace the one and done. I mean, he was successful. He won titles. He created this dynasty that did not adapt, and then he ended up, being kind of, not being as embraced this good coach. I feel like Dabo Swinney's on the same road as Bobby Knight.
But I mean, my counterpoint to that would be, it's not necessarily like the one and done necessarily just automatically wins your title. I mean, John Calipari is a great example. I mean, he has lived off the one and done at Kentucky, but he only has one national title. I mean, and constantly is in a position where he doesn't have players to perform at a high level in the postseason. So, literally the past few years, he's been relying on Oscar Tshiebwe, who is not a one and done prospect.
Oscar Tshiebwe of your Indiana Pacers.
Yeah. So
I'm glad I can finally root for that guy.
I know he's such a good guy.
He's the most annoying player to play against.
Yeah, it's like Bryce Young. I like watching Bryce Young play. That dude is electric, but I didn't like watching him play for Alabama. I like Jameer Gibbs. Jameer Gibbs is a local kid from right down the road here in Dalton, Georgia. I actually did a story on him a few months ago because he gave back to a charity. I mean, good guy. I'm just glad that he's no longer at Alabama. I can root for him on the Lions. So much very likable a team. So
it's the same thing with Anthony Richardson. I think he's a great dude. Now he's playing for the Colts. I don't have to dislike him anymore because he plays for Florida. He's a
I'm gonna
great
be honest. I don't dislike. I mean, look, I know technically I'm supposed to hate the Colts or whatever, but he's exciting to watch. He is exciting,
and he's just a good dude, genuine, good person, and you don't see that very often.
Absolutely. I mean, y'all should be excited about the future. Just my one concern so far for
but I'm
2
not
games with
excited to see
him.
him keep taking hits. He needs to get down on the ground.
I mean, he's got to stay healthy. Y'all got to find a way to keep him healthy because I don't. For your sake, I don't want you to see a second straight quarterback get ruined because of injuries.
Do you agree with the Aaron Young statement?
I don't know if you guys have seen this, but when he was in Florida, there's a rap video. He put out a rap video and he was rapping outside of a gas station. And look, he's no Kendrick Lamar, but Kendrick Lamar is not scoring touchdowns in the NFL.
I'll say this though, a star athlete that is trying to embrace rapping right now is really playing bad in Flamengo. So I will advise Richardson to stay out of rap and keep the mind on the field. Because
Antonio Brown is the number one example of this.
There's only one athlete I can think of off the top of my head that was a musician. Now, to his credit, well, I guess it's not really credit, but just in his defense, it wasn't rap. It was hip hop, but not rap. There is a difference for the white people among us that are watching that don't know the difference. There is a difference. But he he put out a song called Champions the night that they won the NBA Finals, and that's Ron Artest.
Yeah.
That's a true fact. He had the song written and recorded, and he dropped it the night that the Lakers won the championship in 2008.
Athletes either want to be musicians or want to be with musicians. See Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift.
I am team Taylor and Travis. I am here for that. I think it's electric. Taylor Swift.
I think Travis Kelce may be one of the few guys that can actually handle. That can actually do that. I mean, Taylor Swift. It's just for somebody like Travis Kelce, right? You're a 2-time Super Bowl champion. You got to host SNL. I mean, there's not many people who are that much more famous than you, but Taylor Swift is one of those people, right? And they can understand each other. And because honestly, I've been beginning to watch a lot of the Kelce's podcasts recently with him and his brother Jason. And shout out to the Eagles offensive line too. Those boys can sing. I don't know if you heard their Christmas album last year, but those boys can sing. Yeah, but it certainly. I think it's just a good thing for the league, right? To have one of your star athletes be, in a relationship with, at least potentially a relationship with, the biggest superstar in the world, period, in entertainment. Like Taylor Swift is literally has created her own economy. It's unreal what she has done.
But I'll say this: I was joking because Gabigol, he's playing terrible at Flamengo. The fans hated him, and he's trying to develop his rapping career. And he was trying to put out a small concert on his birthday, and Flamengo fans showed up outside of his house, wanted to invade his house and chanting, "Stop being a rapper, come back being a soccer player." The Flamengo fans hate players who trying to rap. And the nickname of Gabriel Barbosa, rapping name, is so funny. It's Lil Gabi. Lil Gabi. I think it's funny.
Yeah. On that note, that's the pun. There was, I guess, one more thing I wanted to bring up. That miracle field goal from Mizzou.
The kicker.
I mean, that guy, holy cow, he just signed his check to an NFL with that kick, didn't he?
If you guys remember, in 2020, he hit a field goal like that against Tennessee and Knoxville, too.
Yeah. I mean, he is insane how good he is. I mean, to hit a kick in that situation, and eventually have to delay a game, because Eli Drinkwitz tried to lose this game for Missouri. He really did.
Really quick, Nick, I need to go back. I need to backtrack one more thing to do with musicians. Greatest greatest athlete musicians of all time, the 7th Floor Crew. Shout out to the 7th Floor Crew. If you know, you know. I didn't
definitely
see the
don't
comment,
know.
but that deserves to get some recognition. What'd you say, Nick?
And I definitely don't know.
Oh, if you listen, anybody watching, if you don't know what the 7th Floor Crew is, you are in for it's something else. You are in for a shock. It is something else.
Third leg, Greg. Third leg,
Hey.
Greg.
Greg Olson, shout out to Greg Olson. Greg Olson should be in the Hall of Fame from his verse on that song alone. If you know, you know. I will say no more about the 7th Floor Crew. This is not the forum for that, but it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up after this. And also, I mean, and the dude's just a good commentator. I mean, he has filled in nicely as a lead commentator for Fox. But that's another. That's an aside. Where was I at? Oh yeah, Eli Drinkwitz. Yeah, and of course Eli Drinkwitz. I just don't like this guy very much. Some of the stuff he says is so weird. Off the field, like the comment he made a few weeks ago about Brady Cook dating his daughters. I mean, it's just weird. He's a weirdo, and like the dude celebrates getting one recruit like it's a national title. I mean, I just don't understand. And he films himself when these recruits commit, and it's like running around screaming like a little schoolgirl. Like it's so weird that he feels the need to do this stuff. And then as an in-game manager, he's just terrible. I mean, literally like mismanaging the game clock, mismanaging the play calling. And if it wasn't for his kicker being incredible, I mean, they would have gone to overtime and potentially lost against K-State. But shout out to that kicker though. He bailed out his team. But I have to question the Mizzou fans. Did you really get arrested for K-State?
Harrison
Mevis.
Harrison Mevis.
Yeah. Did you really need a rush to fill for Kansas State, though? I mean, look, I know they used to be conference rivals, right? And I think maybe Mizzou fans, maybe they watched the game and they realized we don't really belong in the SEC. This is where we truly belong. It's back in the old Big Eight, where we truly, truly belong.
I feel with this so much college realignment, this Missouri SEC experience, just like Missouri come back to the Big 12. Like, the rivalries all there, Kansas State, even Arkansas, I think should think about it because, the fans rushing the field was like how much they miss playing their rival and beating them. I mean, I just, I agree with you, Nick.
I mean, shout out Arkansas losing to a Big 12 team in BYU. I wouldn't know anything about losing to BYU at home, by the way. Never seen a home loss to BYU, especially in person and especially in overtime. Nah, but yeah. Anyway, I'm going to skip UNC versus instantly because that happened like 10 days ago. Were there any other college football games that really caught your eye on Saturday? Because I feel like overall, outside of some of the games that we talked about, it was relatively tame. I mean, I think the number one result that got me, Florida State. I mean, Boston College, the 2 weeks before, had to survive a last drive against Holy Cross, which is a top 5 team in FCS, but still, and lost to Northern Illinois, which went on to lose the next week to Southern Illinois.
Shout out to the Salukis. They're pretty good. Keep an eye on them this year in the FCS.
I mean, they might go deep in the FCS playoffs. They're good. Shout out the Mocs, too. They had an awful loss in week 1 against North Alabama, but they've gotten 2 pretty good wins back-to-back against Kennesaw State and the Citadel. So hopefully the Mocs are well on their way to being – maybe they can get back to the postseason for the first time in a while.
I want to say something real quick about Boston College. Boston College is a tough place to play anyway if their fans show out, historically. Now, their fans have not showed out all the time. But there is one game every year where they do, and it's the bandana game in honor of Wells Crowther. And when they play the bandana game, you're going to get a different Boston College football team. That's just the way it is. Now, if you don't know about Wells Crowther, he was a hero who died saving people on 9/11. I actually did a documentary about it. Search it on YouTube. It's called Meant for Something More, the Wells Crowther story. And if you haven't heard it, I highly recommend. But you can tell they go out and play with emotion. And the other thing is they're playing with house money. Nobody expects them to beat Florida State. Florida State's really good this year. And so when you can play with house money, play with the emotion, but not in your emotions, you're going to be a pretty good football team that day. And I think that's what happened against Florida State. Plus, Florida State's also they've got a lot of guys who are new to the team, a lot of transfers. They're prone to having some clunker games, and I think this was just one of them.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was watching that game because obviously I watched you make that whole process go through that process. That was a months-long process, folks, that he took to make that documentary and to track some of the
3 or 4 months of doing nothing but that because I couldn't do anything else because my arm was in a sling because I had a broken collarbone.
And you had to track down all his family and the people that were there. I mean, it was incredible. So definitely give that thing a lot. Listen, folks, it's
meant for something more. The Wells Crowther story. It's on YouTube. It's about 21 minutes long. I would highly recommend if you've never heard his story, give it a listen. It's a story that I was honored to tell, and it is a story that deserves to be heard.
Absolutely. It's absolutely. All right. I guess let's move into some predictions this week. First and foremost, as we like to do, upset alert. Who should be on upset alert this week? And I guess I will.
You got to go first. I'm not prepared for this. I didn't look at the outline before I hopped on. I just hopped on because I was late. That's on me.
I'll say this: North Carolina should be on upset alert. This Pitt team, I think, is going to give a lot of trouble because their home crowd. They want to see the team bounce back, and also Texas going to Waco. It's a hostile environment.
That's interesting because Baylor, right? Obviously get blown out week 1 against Texas State, but they almost beat Utah in week 2, and arguably probably should have won that game in week 2. In Texas, they didn't necessarily play hot on Saturday, right? But Wyoming's a really good team. Let's not get it twisted. Wyoming's really good. So I wasn't really surprised that Wyoming hung in with Texas for a while in that football game. But I think Texas will take care of Baylor relatively. Here's my spicy pick. We just talked about this team. Give me Memphis over Missouri. The Tigers, they're both the Tigers. The Memphis Tigers over the Missouri Tigers. I really think that I just am not that impressed with Missouri. And I know they just beat a top 15 Kansas State team, but the week before they beat MTSU 23-19. And we have yet to see an Eli Drinkwitz team be consistently good week to week. They can occasionally get a good win, but they can fall flat on their face the next. Don't be shocked if Memphis pulls off a win there in Columbia.
I've got one for you. I haven't looked through all the matchups yet, but I see one that's coming up. It's going to be Saturday on the Big 12 network. Sam Houston State at Houston. I think Houston needs to be on upset alert. Sam Houston is 0, I believe they're 0-3 to start the season. They are 0-2. They have lost at Brigham Young 14-0, and they lost to Air Force 13-3. But they have shown that, historically speaking, in FCS, they are a good football program. Houston is rather down at the moment. And I think that is one matchup that, just looking through, that's a sneaky upset that I think a lot of people may not see coming. Another one that I really like is Iowa over Penn State. I think that may be the worst-looking college football game of the year, maybe the ugliest game. And that's why I think Iowa has a good chance to pull that one out. I agree with Pitt hosting 17 North Carolina as well. And then last but not least, and this is my spicy pick, I'm going to take Arizona State at home against number 5 USC. I don't think USC is that good.
I disagree. I think USC, honestly, I think this team this year is better than last year. That offense right now is operating on a different level. And I really do think that defense has improved somewhat. Now, I don't think they're amazing, but Arizona State's not going to be the team to exploit that. I mean, Arizona State is just in a world of hurt. right now as a program, and I would
I don't
be
even disagree.
stunned.
I don't even disagree. But they're playing with house money. It's the same thing I was saying before. They're playing with house money. Nobody thinks they can win. Why not go out there and pull all the tricks out?
Yeah, if they lose this game, especially because the USC's defense fails, Alex Grin should be fired in the tarmac, to say the least. Like Lane Kiffin once was for losing at Arizona State upon a time. Also, one result I should have mentioned previously. What in the world's happened to Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State? 33-7 loss to South Alabama. And South Alabama was a good team, but man, Oklahoma State, like this time last year, they were a top 10 team with Spencer Sanders. And now Spencer Sanders is literally a backup quarterback right now for Ole Miss. So something's happened at Oklahoma State because they have they're down bad right now. And also shout out Iowa State for not being able to score on Ohio like at all. Like that game was 0-0 at halftime. I mean, man, they're doing their best Iowa Hawkeyes impression.
I have one more upset pick for you guys. Clark Lee and Vandy over Kentucky.
And they did it last year.
I think that's a very doable game. I think Kentucky's offense has looked really bad, especially without Chris Rodriguez. You're not going to be able to just skate by like you did against Eastern Kentucky. Vanderbilt's still an SEC team. They still get semi-SEC recruits. Let's not give them too much credit, but they're still in the SEC.
I will say that UNLV game was disappointing for Vandy. Like I thought they would go out there, take care of business, and they didn't. Because I thought, honestly, I picked Vandy to beat Wake Forest 2 weeks ago, and that didn't even come close to happening. Now, that was a weird game with weather delays, but still, like Wake Forest isn't anywhere close to where they were last year because Sam Hartman's at Notre Dame. But
I think it's more of an indictment of Kentucky than it is praising Vanderbilt.
That's fair enough because I don't think they're very good either. Okay, let's get into some picks here. Normally, I only pick 5 games, but I put in 7 because there are 6 top 25 matchups post Florida State Clemson. So we'll start with the top here. UCLA at Utah. Who do we have here?
Utah.
I will go with Utah.
Yeah, I will go with Utah as well.
All right, next game up is Iowa Penn State. I know, Jason, you alluded to this. Are you going with Iowa on the road?
Yeah, give me Iowa over Penn State.
I'll take Penn State.
Penn State, but it's going to be on a thin margin. I think it's going to be by like a field goal or even less.
Yeah. How about this? The battle of the last 2 teams of the Pac-12. Oregon State, Washington State, and shout out to both of these teams. They're both ranked right now. Showing why they deserve to be power programs. Who is the last man standing in the Pac-12? Between Oregon State and Washington State. I'll take the Beavers. I've got Oregon State. I think DJ Uiagalelei makes one more play than Cameron Ward.
I'm not really terribly impressed with either of those teams, but I think I'm going to go with Oregon State also, I think. And I tend to believe in DJ Uiagalelei, in his talent. He's had the same sort of problems that Joe Milton's had, finding some consistency, but I think I'll take the Beavers in that game.
Gus?
Give me Oregon State.
All right. The SEC CBS game of the week. Can Lane Kiffin finally beat Nick Saban? Ole Miss, Alabama.
No. Give me Alabama by 30.
I think
I don't know if it's by 30. But I think Bama wins.
Bama, but it's not going to cover the spread. It's going to be by a field goal.
You guys are a
Yeah.
lot higher on Ole Miss right now than I am. I think Alabama runs them out of the stadium. Maybe it's
I
not 30,
mean,
maybe it's 28. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it'd be a very Bama type performance, but I'm starting to have to ask whether this Bama is the Bama of the past. But we're going
You
to
still
find
got
out.
Nick Saban. Don't doubt Nick Saban.
That's very true. All right, this one will interest you, the ACC guy. Florida State on the road in Death Valley. FSU hasn't beaten Clemson since I believe 2014. Do they break it? Do they break their drought?
It's funny. I actually thought about making this one of my upset picks. However, this isn't the Clemson you're used to. Clemson is trash on offense. They can't move the football. Cade Klubnik's parents are on TV more than he is, doing good things. And so I like Florida State, but I think it will be a pretty ugly game.
I agree. I think FSU, as you said, I think that Boston College just played out of their minds last week. And that Florida State team we saw against LSU is closer to the Florida State you'll see week to week. I'll go with FSU.
Yeah, I'll go Florida State by two touchdowns.
All right, Colorado, Oregon, this prime. They'll keep the momentum going and get to 4-0 against the Ducks.
Yes.
Bo Nix versus Shadur Sanders.
Look, I'm just going to be the hater. I got to go Oregon, but I think it'll be close.
The Cinderella story continues. Give me Colorado.
I'm going to take Colorado also, but I don't think this is because of Colorado. I think this is an indictment of Oregon not being as good as people are hyping them to be. I think this is going to be a much closer game than anybody gives credit for.
Yeah, and I mean they should have lost to Texas Tech a few weeks ago too. So
and when it comes down to it, when you are talking about all right, who the ball is in whose hands, I want Shadur Sanders over Bo Nix. It's really that simple. Give me Colorado for that reason alone.
I just my problem is I just think Oregon right now just has way more depth around the team, while Colorado I think has better talent on the top end. I think that the deepness of the depth is going to win out for Oregon at the end, and plus it's in Austin, but we'll see. We will definitely.
I can see it. I don't think it's going to be a runaway by any stretch of the imagination. Excuse me.
Absolutely. And what I have teamed the game of the week is in your state, Jason, in Indiana, as Ohio State travels to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Who do we have here between the Buckeyes and the Fighting Irish?
Ohio State by double digits. I don't know that it'll be multiple scores, probably by 10. I really like Ohio State in this matchup. I don't think Notre Dame is as good as people say they are either. That's fine. I can be the hater. I truly think Ohio State's going to go in there and just look pretty dominant start to finish.
Give me Notre Dame.
See, before last week, it would have been all on Notre Dame, but Ohio State beating Western Kentucky 63-10 is super impressive. It really is. But Notre Dame to me has been super impressive so far all year, and Sam Hartman is the best quarterback they've had in a very long time.
I think he's the best quarterback they've had since Jimmy Clausen. Truly,
I would agree. I think this is a back and forth. Either team could win this one. I think this has a classic potential all over it. I think Notre Dame will. I'm going to go Notre Dame very close, like a field goal, but wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State won. But I think this will be a phenomenal game, and this is the type of game that college football is made for right here. Two helmet teams at full strength, and I think it'll be a good one on Saturday night. All right, off to some NFL. Of course, I guess what's shocking is the week Bears DC got resigned amidst an FBI raid, and there's a whole bunch of stuff flying.
What? This is news to me.
Hold on. So, yeah.
I knew that he had resigned, but I didn't know what was behind it. That's wild.
Yeah. So, there was a rumor that there was FBI raids at both his house and the Bears facility. The Bears came out and said that wasn't true. But that Alan Williams was a DC, and he said that he quotes took a step back to take care of his health and family. But a
Uh,
lot of
Touchdown in Santa Clara, and it's the blue and white.
oh
The
wow, it's
New York
17-12.
Giants.
The
Yep.
Giants are not going away. I'll tell you this early on. I wasn't impressed with how Freddie was playing early on in this game, but the Giants. I mean, after falling 20-0 to the Cardinals, they've found something. It seems. But anyway, 17-12, they're in San Francisco. But at least the rumor that's going around is potentially something to do with child porn. That's the rumor. Now that's not confirmed. But yeah, if that's true, I mean obviously that's about as bad as it can get. So I hope for his sake that's not true.
Yeah, that's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and frankly, to just resign out of the blue 2 games into a season, it's
There's
probably
some
gotta
truth
be
behind it if he's doing that.
Yeah, so
You gotta believe.
Yeah, just the Bears organization right now is in general is a disaster. Like I thought they would. I mean, I didn't expect them to be a playoff team or anything, but I thought they would be much more competitive. So far, they've not been. Justin Fields looks like he's taken the step forward as a passer. And Matt Eberflus just has this work cut out for him in Chicagoland. And I know some people are openly wondering should they replace Justin Fields next year if they have a really high draft pick. And
if you can get Drake May, I think he's better than Justin Fields. But at the same time, I think Justin Fields is also he's one of those guys where if you coach him upright, he's going to have an opportunity to do well. So if you get Justin Fields onto a team like I'm trying to think of a team that has a guy that can develop quarterbacks that needs a quarterback. The usual suspects being, Kansas City, Shane Steichen on the Colts, develop Jalen Hurts, and you've got.
I have to say, because all the teams that need a quarterback,
they don't have coaches that can develop quarterbacks.
Yeah. So, well, the Titans could be one of them, but
maybe he goes to like New England. That would be a situation where I think he could do well, but
the New York Jets, they could use him too.
Well, the Jets need everybody they can get.
Yeah, and obviously Gus and I were live during at least the second half of that Jets Bills game last week after Aaron Rodgers had just torn his Achilles, and we have learned since that he is out for the season. I know he said that he would try to push as hard as he could to maybe return for the playoffs if the Jets made the playoffs.
They're not going to make the playoffs. He doesn't have anything to worry about.
No, I agree with that. I think my questions up in the eyeliner, at his age of 39, I mean, can he come back from this and be
Yes. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's going to do it out of spite. He's going to come back, play 1 year, then he's going to retire. He's not going out like that. Do you really think he would go out like that? It's Aaron Rodgers. That dude is more stubborn than any 2 people.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, you don't go on a darkness retreat. You don't go on the whole hubbub on the offseason just to go out with your Achilles torn on Monday Night Football, especially with that entrance. He had such an epic entrance with the American flag on 9/11 in New York. It was just, I mean, it's just pretty shocking. Of course, as we saw last week against the Cowboys, unfortunate, to say the least, with Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson getting a second chance, he just isn't good enough. I'm just gonna. What are your thoughts, Gus, on this? I know you are the Jets fan.
I feel like definitely the Jets are cursed. I mean, they should put some sort of a salt and call a priest or a pastor to bless, because like the Jets have not made the playoff in 13 years. I'm not saying the Super Bowl. I'm not saying AFC Championship. Even the New England Patriots, with all their messiness, with all their like craziness. And now being without Tom Brady, they made it to the playoffs, and the Jets haven't. So I guess that's all I can say. But Jason, I appreciate you joining us tonight. Definitely. Just when you're about to leave, so how you feel about the Colts this season? Are you disappointed, surprised? Like, how you feel about the Colts?
I think the Colts are doing exactly what I thought they would do, which is be a team that hovers about 500 and shows some flashes, but also has some clunker games. We haven't seen a complete clunker yet, but I think it's coming. I think the Colts hover around 500. I think the Jags run away with the division.
I would agree with that.
I think the Titans are in the same spot for what it's worth. I think they're going to hover around 500, and the Jags are just going to pull away, and then the
Yeah,
Texans
because
are going to be the Texans.
I'll say this right now. I'm definitely cautiously optimistic because we went from having no offense the first 5 quarters to all of a sudden just an explosion from the second quarter on. But I do wonder if that just has to do more with the Chargers just having no defense. I mean, the Chargers may have one of the 5 worst defenses in the league, especially if you let Brian Tannehill carve you up. I mean, come on, who lets Brian Tannehill in 2023 carve them up? You know, or I mean, or what? Maybe I'm hoping maybe the Saints just have an elite defense. Because I mean, yeah, as bad as Tannehill played, we still really had a chance to win that game. Um, and plus, let's just be real, the Los Angeles Chargers once again can't win close games. I mean, like I really think they got to change coaches with the Chargers because Brandon Staley, just for the life of himself, cannot win a close game to save his life. But hey, at least after the Florida debacle Saturday night, I definitely needed that bounce back from the Titans. But I don't plan on them playing like that more often than not, to say the least. But hey, I'll take it when I can get it. Um, but anyway, Jason, I know you have to go, man. But thank you so much for joining us as always. And you are always welcome on the Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Absolutely. All right, let's kind of run through some things here. Just real quick notes. You Nick Chubb and Trayvon Diggs have both torn their ACLs and are out for the season. For Chubb especially, that sucks. He broke his ACL back in 2015 at the Tennessee Georgia game, and it's just apparently it was so bad they won't even show the replay. So that's not good. Hopefully he can bounce back. And Trayvon Diggs especially, and for the Cowboys, that's going to suck. I really think that. Um, for the Cowboys, been so far through 2 weeks, and they may be the most complete team so far for 2 weeks, especially defensively. But losing Trayvon Diggs is going to hurt them significantly. Also, Cincinnati. Oh, go ahead.
And I was gonna say another thing I want to say about the NFL. How about Baker Mayfield carrying the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a 2-0 start? I mean, who'd have thought?
I mean, I'm not surprised that he's a good quarterback. I mean, everyone acted like he sucks for no reason. Like, I mean, honestly, I don't think it was his fault that everything went bad in Cleveland. Cleveland's just a disaster. You know, I mean, they were willing to take on the PR nightmare that is Deshaun Watson, for Christ's sake. So, um, I'm glad Baker Mayfield's in a much more stable organization now, and he is succeeding because of it. Also, Cincinnati, 0-2. Now, granted, they got an offense kind of going towards the end of that game against Baltimore, but man, so far, this does not look like the Bengals we're used to. And I think a lot of it, honestly, is Joe Burrow being hurt in the preseason. I think it's going to take him some time to get up to speed. And once he does, he'll be fine and his offense will be fine. But you don't want to fall too much in the hole. And I think they're going to be digging from a hole throughout this entire season. But, want to get into some picks here, Gus? I know we already picked the Giants Niners. We both picked San Francisco. So let's pick the rest of these games, shall we?
Yeah, real quick, definitely. Definitely. So let's start with the 1 o'clock games Eastern time, 2 o'clock games here. The Browns, the Tennessee Titans going to Cleveland to face the Browns. Give me the Titans.
Give me the Browns. I think the Browns defensively will cause some issues. Very close.
Um, Atlanta going to Detroit to play the Lions. Give me the Lions.
Lions. All right, next one here I have Saints and Packers. 2-0 Saints at 101 Packers. Give me the Packers.
Give me the Packers too.
All right, we have the 0-2 Broncos, who, wow, what an awful start for them. Awful start. They almost had a miracle finish against Washington. At the 2-0 Dolphins. You know, this all convention would tell me not to do this. Give me Denver.
Give me Denver too. I think they bounce back.
Yeah, we're both on the 0-2 team here. Now, here is a shocking 0-2 match. 0-2 Los Angeles Chargers versus 0-2 Minnesota.
Give me the Chargers.
Give me the Vikings. I just can't trust the Chargers to win close games. 0-2 Patriots at 101 Jets. Give me New England.
Give me the Jets.
Brian Dable is fired up. I don't know what happened, but he is fired up. He is about ready to. Oh, I think Kayvon Thibodeau got called for pass interference, I believe. So, okay. We have the 101 Bills with the 2-0 Commanders. Give me the Bills.
Give me Buffalo.
All right, we have the 0-2 Texans at the 101 Jaguars. Give me Jacksonville.
Give me Jaguars.
1-1 Colts at 2-0 Ravens. Battle for Baltimore. Give me the Ravens.
The former Baltimore team versus the current Baltimore team. Give me the Ravens.
0-2 Panthers at 101 Seahawks. Once again, I feel bad for Bryce Young. Give me Seattle.
Give me the Seattle Seahawks.
0-2 Bears at 101. Okay, both of these 425 Fox games are awful. Okay, 0-2 Bears, 101 Chiefs. Give me the Chiefs.
Give me the Chiefs. Going to be a beatdown.
Yeah, and here we go. 2-0 Cowboys at 0-2 Cardinals. Cowboys.
By I think by 3 touchdowns.
Why are the Cardinals on any primetime games this year? I mean, I love Josh Dobbs, and he should have won last week, but man, he ain't winning this week. All right, Sunday Night Football, Steelers Raiders. Give me the Steelers.
Give me the Raiders. Give me the Raiders.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one. I'll take the Steelers. Once again, we have a doubleheader on Monday night. Philadelphia 2-0 at Tampa 2-0. Give me Tampa. Philly has some question marks to me right now.
Give me Tampa Bay too.
And on the final game, 1-1 LA Rams at the 0-2 Bengals. I think the Bengals will get in the win column. I think they'll start turning things around.
Give me the Bengals too.
Absolutely. So that's some NFL for this week. Real quick, just some quick MLB. Shout out to the Braves. They won their 6th straight NL East title. They just own the NL East. I mean, every year it's like, oh, this is the Mets year to finally take them over. Or it's finally the Phillies year to take them over. Watch out for the Marlins. Nope, the Braves, they just win the NL East year after year after year. But will it translate in October? That is the question. That's always the question. We'll see if they can get a second and a third, right? And they're really close, really, to wrap up the 1 seed overall and getting up with the wild card. So, yeah, obviously, super proud of the team once again. But that's almost a formality at this point with the NL East. It's all about what you do in October. So I'm excited for that. But I think the most interesting thing here is Ohtani having season-ending elbow surgery. He's only going to hit in 24. He's not going to pitch. I think, obviously he's a great hitter, but I don't know if he's as special of a player if he's just hitting, right? Because the value of a Tony, right, is being able to pitch and being able to hit. Just that's. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. You're not going to command $500 or $600 million just to hit. Like, you got to be able to pitch as well. This actually could raise the likelihood of staying with the Angels, in my opinion. But we will see what happens there. Quick NASCAR, Denny Hamlin won Bristol. Joey Logano, last year champion, got eliminated along with Kevin Harvick in this last season. Sad to see that happen. Shout out Bubba Wallace, though, for making it to the next round. Pretty good. Unfortunately, they go to Texas, and as you know, Gus, Texas is my least favorite racetrack. But I'll go with someone like a Kyle Larson to win. And shout out Shane Van Gisbergen. He announced that he's going full-time in NASCAR, won in Chicago earlier this summer. Gus, what's going on down in Brazil?
Yeah, so let's wrap up. In Brazil, Palmeiras looks like it's going to lose 1-0 to Grêmio. But the main story is Flamengo. Flamengo has been in turmoil. I mean, you've been following the Flamengo drama all season, the inability to win any titles, running through coaches. But now even their sports director is in crisis mode because first Marcos Braz fights with players like Gabriel Barbosa, Gabigol. But this week he got into an altercation with a fan in the mall. Like he even bit the fan and also like kick and punch. He alleged that he was his life was being threatened. He was with his daughter. But the worst part is he's not only a Flamengo's soccer director, he's also Rio de Janeiro City Council, man. And the city council was having a session while he was at the mall.
Brazilian soccer, man. I mean, just some of the stories that come out of Brazilian soccer. I mean, it really is the closest kinship anywhere in the world to college football. Because this is the type of stuff that would happen in college football. I mean,
yeah, Brazilian soccer is college football. The passion, the storylines, the drama, the coaches and the ADs.
I mean, man, and there are some Tennesseans out there that would fight Tim Banks and the defensive staff this week, more than likely.
But it was so funny seeing the Marcos Braz press conference. I don't know what's worse. He's justifying fighting the fan or justifying missing city council, a city council session to go to the mall with his daughter. I don't know which one was worse. I don't really know which one was worse.
Flamengo, as someone who sits through a lot of city council meetings, I understand.
I know, like he had justifications, like that he went through all the protocols and stuff. But come on, like if he was in city council, he wouldn't have got into trouble like he did. And Flamengo is in the midst of deciding the only shot they have in title, which is winning the Brazilian Cup. I mean, they play really, 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 really bad against São Paulo. São Paulo 1-0 in Maracanã. Like, do you know? Like the average price ticket for that game was 400. The average ticket was 400 reais, not the lowest, the average. Like there was.
Wow, I didn't know Deion Sanders coached in Brazilian soccer too.
Oh yeah, and the amount of money that I don't know what they call in America, like the money that you get for selling tickets was 26 million reais, was the record in terms of ticket sales. But São Paulo won. I think São Paulo finally gonna win the Brazilian Cup. I don't think Flamengo is gonna recover. Definitely with Jorge Sampaoli, they're not gonna win anything because the players hate him. He's being stubborn. He's just lost, and the Flamengo president Rodolfo Landim was the one who hired him. He doesn't want to fire him, and Marcos Braz want to fire Sampaoli. But it's just Flamengo is just a soap opera, like the biggest soap opera.
I mean, I just don't know how you're going to ever be successful if you don't get some people who can get in there and settle things down.
Yeah,
and hopefully they take a long look this. Well, I guess it's going to be summer down in Brazil, but a long look this summer in Brazil when it's the off season and
Yeah.
recalibrate.
A lot of players probably gonna leave. Bruno Henrique, his contract ends by the end of the year. I don't think he's gonna stay. Gabigol also, I think, is gonna leave. Probably some players are gonna retire. And Palmeiras almost scored. They hit the post. Wow, that was close. But I think Flamengo dynasty is over. Flamengo's dynasty is over, and I think they're gonna really look themselves in the mirror and they're gonna bounce back. Also, Paulista under 23. Shout out to Catanduva and União São João. They were promoted to A3, the third division in the state of São Paulo. Congratulations to
And wasn't that
them.
the team that beat us, beat Rio Branco, counted over,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Man,
The
so
3-2 team.
close.
Yeah,
So
the
close.
beat Rio. No, it was the one that beat Rio Branco twice in the third round, not the one in the quarterfinals. The one the quarterfinals lost to Catanduva, lost at home when they won 1-0 on the road. So that was the biggest upset. So
Yeah.
shout out to them. And last but not least, Botafogo gonna play tomorrow and look like they're gonna expand their lead because Palmeiras look like it's gonna lose on the road. And Bragantino, third place, came out of nowhere. I mean, what a campaign done by Coach Pedro Caixinha, this humble team. It's very surprised. And last but not
Yeah.
least, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to Richarlison. Richarlison playing for Tottenham. And
Finally,
I don't know if you saw that game, Gus, but it looked like they were going to lose at home to Sheffield United, and they scored 2 goals in 3 minutes to win it, including a goal from Richarlison. Incredible finish.
finally,
In Tottenham.
finally, they were able to. Finally, Richarlison was able to score. I mean, he tried his best with the Brazilian national team, could have done. And let's see, last play of the game, Palmeiras has a corner kick. It's probably the last play of the game. Rafael Veiga is gonna kick the corner kick on the left hand
Yeah.
side.
And
Even
while you're waiting on that to happen, just a quick update in San Francisco, 2012 is the score there in favor of the Niners.
So Palmeiras still on attack, cross, head, nothing happens. So looks like Grêmio is gonna win 1-0. But that was it for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, episode 95.
Absolutely, man. 5 to 100. I forgot what we're going to do for that episode.
I
Yeah.
was thinking I need to find a way to do this episode live on a stadium. I'm gonna do live on a stadium. I'm gonna try.
We need to go back through and like go through like some of the moments, right? Like watching the Braves in the World Series, and like last week watching the Jets win on the punt return, like stuff like that. I'll have to compile some clips for episode 100 because we've certainly had some moments here on the Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, because we've almost been doing this for 2 years. So it is amazing that we're still doing this. And I'm glad that every single week that we get to come back and talk with American and Brazilian sports because we're the only ones that do it. And no matter what place we live in, because this is Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. For Gus Tomazeli, I'm Nick Hill. Have a good night.